Did you know the last number one seed to actually win the Super Bowl? Well, that was the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles. Well, the 2022 season is finally over. And the NFL's version of musical chairs begins with the humbly named Super Wildcard Weekend. We're going to set the stage with Sal Paolantonio, Pat Leonard, Sean Green, and Gary Myers. It's all coming up right now on This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football. A deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wildcard edition of This Week in Pro Football here on JAKIB Sports. Pat Callahan joining you. Give me a follow on Twitter at TWIPFPat. You can follow the network at JAKIB Sports. As we now begin the preparation for Wildcard Weekend, or I should say Super Wildcard Weekend, because what the hell, it's not just any Wildcard Weekend with the National Football League, it's super. I think 3 of the 6 games are not that super, but we'll go through all of them, starting with the great Sal Paolantonio, who's going to be joining us in a few minutes. And we also have the other usual suspects lining up here. Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News will join us to talk a little bit about those the two NFC East playoff games. The Giants are in Minnesota. Cowboys are at Jacksonville. Sean Green will join us to talk about some props and some betting lines. And, of course, I'll ask him if he had TCU plus 59 in the college football championship game on Monday night. And then Gary Myers wraps it up. We'll be talking to Gary about, of course, the Wildcard Weekend and about the number of announced and maybe some yet to come coaching changes as that carousel starts to wind up like it usually does in the NFL offseason. All right. But we still got the Wildcard Weekend to look at. But, Xander, how about we bring up a little Lombardi here? What the hell is going on out there? Finally, we get to the playoffs. Certainly, I would make the case that the NFL season is now 1 week too long. They had a perfectly symmetrical 16-game season, and it was all done correctly, and now it is not. I think the 17th week was just not a good week of football. And as evidenced by that Eagles-Giants game in which both teams treated it like a preseason game. The Eagles did enough to win at great risk to their starting quarterback, but with a very vanilla game plan. And the Giants basically brought their JV team, played very well, actually. I thought the Giants put out one heck of an effort. The game was a little too close for comfort if you're an Eagles fan, but the Eagles prevail 22-16. The rest of it shaped up. I don't want to say the biggest surprise, and I think if I get the time, we'll touch with Sal about this, because Sal correctly predicted that the Green Bay Packers were going to make a run. But I don't think he expected that run would come to a stop in Week 17 at home against the Detroit Lions. That was probably the biggest surprise of Week 17 was Aaron Rodgers' 4th straight below pedestrian effort in the 4th quarter of a must-win game. So, he's had a great career. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but still something to say there that he could not win that game for the Packers when they needed it to get into the playoffs against a team which had been eliminated 3 hours before. A welcome yet uneasy bye week. The Eagles do get the bye week, but as I mentioned a minute ago, and again, I'll refer back to Sal. Sal had said very eloquently that the Eagles needed to get their mojo back. I'm going to ask him in a couple minutes if he thinks that the Eagles did that. But the Eagles get a much-needed bye week. You could clearly see that they tempered the playlist to not include any runs by Jalen Hurts, who only had 9 carries for 13 yards in that game. They need a healthy Jalen Hurts if they're going to make this run. The gauntlet in the NFC is not that bad. They're going to have to get past, I think, San Francisco is going to be their major challenge. The gauntlet in the AFC, much worse. So the Eagles get to avoid that up until the time, God willing, they actually make the Super Bowl. 22 season is finally over, as I said. And one comment that springs to mind is that every year there's always a new bunch of guys making the playoffs, and no difference this year. 6 different teams. 6 teams made the playoffs in 2022 that did not make the playoffs in 2021. And they would be Minnesota, Seattle, and the New York Giants are going to make it this year that did not make it last year. And in the AFC, Jacksonville, the LA Chargers, and the Miami Dolphins made it. A lot of talk about the Jaguars. They have the Chargers coming up on Saturday night. But boy, Doug Peterson deserves actually some Coach of the Year consideration for taking that team to a 9-8 record and winning the moribund AFC South. But still a great job by Doug, including that play-in game last week against the Tennessee Titans. So a lot of credit to Doug Peterson there. Today's the 54th anniversary of Joe Namath's guarantee and the New York Jets 16-7 win over the Baltimore Colts. When I was a young man watching that game, 1967, tender age of 10 years old, the Colts were a 17-point favorite over the Jets that day. Jets win the game. Wrong MVP chosen, but Joe Namath made the AFL with that win and really set the stage for – he helped anyway set the stage for the explosive growth that became the National Football League in the late 60s. All right, Xander, why don't we drag this man in here kicking and screaming, and that would be the host of the NFL Matchup Show, an NFL analyst, and, of course, national correspondent for ESPN. You can find him on Instagram at Sal Pal ESPN. That would be Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how you doing?
Pat, I'm doing great. I like that open. A lot of good information in there. I do remember where I was exactly when Joe Namath beat the Baltimore Colts. My dad was an old NFL guy, of course.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I fell in love with Joe Willie Namath.
Yep.
I won myself a red Schwinn bicycle so I can deliver my newspapers, my paper route.
There you go. What were you delivering? Inquirer? Oh, no, you were up in you weren't Inquirer Daily News. You were up in New York, right?
I was delivering Pat Leonard's newspaper, the New York Daily News.
How about that? So you had the afternoon route. Is that right?
No, Daily News was a morning paper.
Oh, was? Okay.
Thus started my love affair with 4 a.m., Pat.
All right. Well, Sal, let's start here with chronology. We'll start with last week. You had, as I said, eloquently put it, that the Eagles needed to get their mojo back against the Giants. Do you think they did it?
I would describe it as stabilization. So mojo comes after stabilization, right? They had to get the ship right, stabilized in the water. They were taking on a little bit of water. There was a little pitch and yaw there.
Yep.
They got it stabilized, and now it's full steam ahead. The next step is take the restrictor plate off of Jalen Hurts.
Right.
And I think they will slowly start to do that. Don't pay attention to the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain, Nick Sirianni, talking about his shoulder being really hurt bad and all this other stuff. Just watch him play, and that will tell you whether or not he can throw the ball the way he wants to and operate the offense the way he wants to. So far, restrictor plate was on against the Giants. They got the job done.
Right.
Pat, you well eloquently put it. Week 17. So this is my second year on week 17, and just talking to players, their bodies are beat up. They just want to survive and advance, especially those teams that know they have their ticket punched. I was in Cincinnati last week. Cincinnati and Baltimore both knew they were going. Eagles knew they were going. Giants knew they were going. It was all about, hey, can we survive this week without any major damage? Can we stabilize?
I know. And you could see how that played out south throughout the NFL schedule last week. You had mentioned we talked previously about Brandon Staley, the coach of the Chargers, and how look what happened with them. They knew going into that game they were now locked into the 5 seed. They did not win. They did not need to win the game in order to stay the 5 seed and avoid that Cincinnati gauntlet. Yet he still played Austin Eckler. He played and he played Mike Williams, who proceeds to come up with a back injury, which he might not be able to play. So tough. It's tough for coaches too, I guess, to navigate that week 17, huh?
Why doesn't he just drive to New Orleans and hand the Chargers job to Sean Payton right now?
Yeah, that may be the case. If they go out tomorrow night, there's a lot of talk that
I mean, if I'm Sean Payton and I'm looking at, okay, Denver, what's going on with Russell Wilson? Don't know.
Right.
Do I want to take on the circus of Dallas? That's a circus. There's big money there, but it's a circus. Or do I want to come right in and take Justin Herbert to the playoffs. Now, you do have to go through Kansas City. That is a problem. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Problem, and if the same thing holds for Tom Brady, if he wants to go to Vegas, he's got to go through Patrick Mahomes. Got to go through Kansas City and Andy Reid, and that is tough to do.
Yeah. Sal, in addition to Jalen Hurts, the Eagles still with some other injury issues as they approach the bye week. The other most notable one, Lane Johnson. Do you have any thoughts on his progress with the abdominal tear that he's got and his readiness for a week from Sunday?
It's an abductor tear, right? So it's actually that muscle that connects the hip to the knee.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep. So that's the way it's been described to me, at least. Of course, abdominal muscles are involved.
Right.
So listen, Lane Johnson's going to suit up. He's going to play. I think, in my view, the bigger injury is Avonte Maddox. Avonte Maddox is one of the best slot cover corners. And the way Jonathan Gannon plays his defense, where he only rushes 4 and he has an expectation that guys are going to be in the right place at the right time downfield, Maddox, to me, is the one that's the real big injury problem. And I think this is the next 10 days where they got to get those backups in the secondary ready for action.
All right. I think that's important. And luckily they get that extra week to do it, because as you and I will talk about after this break, it depends who comes here to Philadelphia. I know it's a week away, but if they end up having to play a team with a pretty strong passing game, say it's not the Giants, say, it could be Dallas, could be Tampa. You got to be ready in the secondary. You're exactly right, because you're going to see a lot of footballs if Tom Brady's that quarterback, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the ball's going to come out. It's hut,
right,
ball out, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Snap to release, 2.45 seconds.
Yeah.
Still the best in the National Football League. And it's out of necessity and design, right?
Yeah.
Both. He don't want to get hit, and he can't move at age 45.
But he gets out there. You're right.
So the ball has got to come out quick. So the design of the offense with the option routes, those old Edelman, Wes Welker option routes, and Mike Evans' ability to beat one-on-one matchups a la Gronk. I mean, it's still there for Brady if he can get the ball out quickly. So I actually think the 4 possibilities, Daniel Jones – last month of the season, highest QBR of any quarterback in the league. Kirk Cousins, Jefferson, and TJ Hawkinson, still a major headache for anybody.
Right.
And the Eagles could not cover CeeDee Lamb when they went down to Dallas. They couldn't. So you're right, Pat. To me, it's pass defense against the quarterbacks that come in, because I'm not really that worried about the Eagles offense. I'm not.
Yeah. All right. But it just underscores what you said about Maddox. So it's a big bye week for Philadelphia. All right, Sal, when we get back, let's go through these 6 super wildcard games. In my opinion, there's 3 that we're not going to spend much time on, but the other 3 I think are intriguing matchups, and I'd love to get your take on all of them. We'll do that with Sal Paolantonio here on This Week in Pro Football. We'll be right back.
First Bank is a true community bank with offices located throughout eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Being a First Bank customer comes with access to personal bankers, ones who know you and your business almost as well as you do. Joe Calabro is a regional president of First Bank and has been a leader and a lender in the southeastern Pennsylvania market for over 30 years. Call their Westchester office, 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
UGI Energy Services knows how dedicated you are to your teams, and that's how they feel about their customers. UGI Energy Services, a natural gas and electric provider servicing Philadelphia and the surrounding areas for decades. They're your local partner for energy planning and budgeting with sound purchasing advice and direct pricing. UGI Energy Services values customers and believes in building honest relationships. Let them help you save money on your energy bill and make enjoying the game that much sweeter. Get started with a free quote today at ugies.com. CantorNovak.com.
Cantor Novak Beaver and Pike is a full-service CPA firm with offices in PA and New Jersey, offering first-rate accounting, audit, and tax services. They focus on helping clients achieve their business and financial goals, from startup operation to long-term financial planning. For more information, call Terry Cantor or Dan Pike at 215-550-2954 or on the web at cnbpcpas.com.
Are you looking for a family-friendly fitness center in the heart of Bucks County? Spring Mill Athletic Club has programs and activities to offer the whole family for every age and season. Group classes, personal training, dance academy, summer camp, and more can be found at this non-intimidating environment. Come tour Spring Mill Athletic Club today and get a free 1-week trial membership. Visit us at springmillathletic.com for more information.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
All right, welcome back here to This Week in Pro Football, Wildcard Weekend, the National Football League. Pleased, as always, to be joined by Sal Paolantonio. You can follow Sal on Instagram at SalPalESPN. And Sal, I'm sure the matchup show, you're cooking something substantial up for this weekend. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, we really are. You know, Super Wildcard Weekend, I think, is one of the best. But the thing is, it comes off that 17th week, that 17th game. So I would implore people not to really look at the performance in week 17. Look at the matchup specifically and when these the 2 teams might have played one another previously when it wasn't in week 17. And I think you got to start with that Saturday night game. Jaguars at home against the Chargers, Pat.
Right,
I think
right.
that's an interesting game to watch on so many fronts. I really do.
You were kind enough to send me some notes, Sal, and just let me wrap up this 22 season and get some comments from you on this. The rushing average, teams average 4.5 rush yards this season, the highest league average in a single season. Do you think the running game is making a comeback in the NFL?
Well, I think they're running more for sure, with more productivity out of the running game because quarterback play is down, Pat.
Yeah.
If you look at the second note there, 68 different starting quarterbacks. Right. I think that's the cause. And then the effect is the running game has been more utilized because teams have had 68 different starting quarterbacks.
I know.
That's the most of any non-strike year ever, Pat. Ever.
Yeah. And that's with, as you pointed out here, 8 teams had the quarterback take every snap. And so that means the other 24 teams were awash in quarterbacks. And that's why the third note that you sent me is so cogent right now, because with what's going on in Baltimore and in Miami, half of the teams in the playoffs this year will have a quarterback making their initial postseason start.
Yeah, I think the point spread is up to 2 touchdowns, Buffalo over Miami. So I think that's indicative of where that game is going. I agree. For sure. I think it would be very hard for the offense to win the game. As for Baltimore, listen, they're in the same predicament as the New York Jets. They have a top 5 defense. The Jets have a top 5 defense. That's why Woody Johnson said, I'm willing to pay any money to get a veteran quarterback in here. Translation to me is not Jimmy G, because I think he's been hurt too much. I think it's Derek Carr.
Right.
If I were the Jets, I would go after Derek Carr. That will solve a lot of their problems right away. Yeah. And Baltimore, same thing. Top 5 defense. I think that Baltimore has the best defense of the 7 teams in the AFC playoffs. Yeah. But they don't have a quarterback. See, I still think Baltimore's got – you disagree. I think Baltimore – I just watched them play last week in Cincinnati.
Right.
They did a heck of a job shutting down Joe Burrow in the second half, just like the Patriots did. I like Baltimore a little bit in that game, Pat, a little bit.
All right. Good for you, because I just I spoke with you earlier about this. You know Lamar Jackson very well.
I do.
And this is his 5th week now. He's going to miss with that knee problem. The optics, of course, those who the glass is perennially half empty are asking if Lamar might be making a business decision, but you don't see it that way.
I don't, Pat. I've interviewed the young man quite a bit. I know the Baltimore organization very well, having covered both of their Super Bowl runs. I just don't see it. I don't think there's any evidence of it at all. I think he's legitimately hurt. And Pat, why would he do that? It would only hurt his chances of getting the guaranteed money he wants.
Right.
It's something that's easily found out. You can easily find something like that out. You just have to examine his knee, or and just a little bit of investigation, and you can determine that he's dogging it. I don't think he's dogging it. I don't think he's making a business decision at all. I think if he were, it would hurt his chances even more of getting the guaranteed money he wants to get.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that. Now we'll segue then back to the Saturday night game that you mentioned a minute ago, which is the Chargers going to Jacksonville. Just give me a quick take on the job Doug Peterson did in Jacksonville this season. And does he warrant any kind of a look for Coach of the Year?
Absolutely, he does. I think he's in the conversation with Brian Daboll, with Nick Sirianni, and with Kyle Shanahan, certainly, for Coach of the Year. I think it's going to be a grab bag, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
It could come down to two guys getting the same number of votes for the first time.
Yeah.
So, now, what has Doug Peterson done? Since they came in and laid that egg at Lincoln Financial Field in the rain, they have turned their season around by making Trevor Lawrence be much more judicious and careful with the football. That is the bottom line. Their pass rush is okay. If you watch that last game, again, week 17, throw it out, but their offensive line did not play that well. It was a must-win game against the Titans, and they really couldn't block the Titans very well. And we saw what the Eagles did in manhandling that Titans defense. So I don't think either their defense or offensive line is championship caliber yet, but he's elevated the play of Trevor Lawrence. He does it with every quarterback eventually. He did it with Pence. He did it with Foles. He did it with Jalen Hurts for a while. So
you look back now, Sal, I'll tell you, with hindsight, the job he did with Carson Wentz is more pronounced and more special, given what's happened to Carson Wentz's career since then. But another word about the Jaguars, and most people don't realize, they actually outscored the Chargers this year. They scored 404 points to LA's 391. You would never think that. With the image of the Chargers as being this wide open offensive team. Jacksonville's won 5 straight and 7 of their last 8. It's going to be a tough out for the Chargers to win this game, I think.
Yeah, it's a pick-em game. There's no question about it. You always think with the Chargers, that old AFL football on NBC with Al DeRogatis and John Hadel and them just throwing the ball all over the yard.
Correct.
I know that was going through your mind when you were thinking about the Chargers.
That's right. Al DeRogatis. Oh, my God. Thank God you could say those names. I'm running out of people who would know Al DeRogatis, so you got to hang around, Sal. All right. All right. So now let's go to Sunday. You've got the opening game is on Sunday, 1:00 is what won the Baltimore Cincinnati. So I hope you're right. I hope that the Ravens have a puncher's chance. I always admire the way the Ravens play football. They play very tough every down. So hopefully they give Cincinnati a scare. But
well, you got Miami. I think you got Dolphins at Bills first.
Oh, no, it's not the Sunday night game, I think.
Then you got Vikings and Giants.
Oh, I thought the Bills game was the Sunday night game, but maybe you're right.
The Sunday night game is Cincinnati and Baltimore, Pat.
Oh, you're right, Sal. You're right. As always, you're right. Okay, so so I'll look forward to that one more because I'm
going to be in Minnesota for the Giants at the Vikings. Okay. To me, the two big games are if the Giants go to Minnesota and beat the Vikings, and if the Bucs can hold off Dallas on Monday night. To me, those are the two biggest games of the weekend for sure.
The Giants at Minnesota, Sal, that game you're going to be covering. I mean, I think the Giants have a chance in this game, but is it a matter, Sal, of which Viking team shows up? Because they do seem to have a split personality.
Well, you could say that, but if you go back and you look at the Week 16 game that was won by a walk-off field goal, a 61-yarder by the Vikings, the Giants had 9 penalties. They had 2 turnovers. That negated over 400 yards of offense. They were leading in that game 16-13 going into the fourth quarter, and then the wheels fell off.
Right.
So and I wrote down the numbers because I really wanted to show it to you and your audience. It is quite amazing what they did with Justin Jefferson and T.J. Hockenson. So Jefferson, 12 catches on 14 targets. Hockenson, 13 catches on 16 targets.
Yeah.
And they had 3 touchdowns combined. So, I mean, wow.
Yeah.
That is
yeah.
They got to the Giants, if they're going to win this game, have got to figure out how to cover Jefferson and Hockenson, 2 guys that nobody has been able to cover this year properly. Yeah. In my view, that's the game right there.
And the other thing, Sal, too, about this game that people don't think about, I believe, when they look at the Vikings, is this team's got a little bit of a steel in their spine here. They have played 11 games this year where the margin of victory is 1 score or was within 1 score, and they won all of them. So that tells you something, that this team does have the ability to close it out. And I think it's going to be a tough game for the Giants, unless I think they need a Saquon 67-yard touchdown run or something like that in order to stay in this game. And we'll see if the Giants can get it. So the other one, let's finish up, Sal. We'll talk about the Monday Nighter, okay, which is, I think it's might be the best game of the entire weekend, actually, is Dallas traveling to Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. Which Dallas team is coming here, Sal? I mean, a terrible effort Sunday. As you pointed out, Week 17, kind of throw it out the window. But, boy, you and I were talking Eagles mojo. There's no mojo going into Tampa Bay this weekend.
No, they've got an 8-game losing streak on the road in the postseason going.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's bad. That's,
yeah, I'd say that qualifies, yeah.
Well, if you want to use the word mojo, that's bad mojo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're being constantly reminded of that. I think you have to, again, look at the matchup here between Todd Bowles' secondary and CeeDee Lamb and Dan Quinn's secondary and Mike Evans and the rest of Brady's array of components on offense. To me, the game is going to be won or lost in the second. You can't get to Brady. You can't. The ball comes out too quick. Nobody's touching him.
Right.
It's by design. He floods everything, all kinds of option routes. You got to be able to cover. You got to be smart. You can't have breakdowns. You have 1 or 2 breakdowns. That's the game, Pat.
Yeah,
that's the game right there.
Yeah, that's it, right?
And then on the flip side is, I want to see what Todd Bowles is going to do on CeeDee Lamb. When CeeDee Lamb wants to go off, it seems, nobody can cover him.
Right. Yeah. Again, by the numbers, Tom Brady 7-0 against Dallas, Sal, and playing off what you said about the Cowboys' road playoff record. Dallas likely would have to win 3 road games just to get to the Super Bowl this year. If you want to find the last 3 Dallas Cowboy playoff road wins, you have to go to 1992, 1991, and 1980. So all you need to do is go back 42 years to find the Cowboys having won their third of 3 playoff road games.
I think there's just so much pressure on this Dallas team that if I were Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator, it would be Pollard, Elliott, Elliott, Pollard, Pollard, Elliott, Elliott, Pollard.
Yeah.
I mean, really, honestly.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking all week long, we got to win the time of possession battle.
Right.
We got to reduce Tom Brady's possessions by 1 or 2 in this game.
Right.
If he has 10 or 11 possessions, you're finished. You're done.
And God forbid, Sal, you make the 10 or 11, 12, and 13 by Dak Prescott, who led the league in interceptions. He hands Brady a couple of extra possessions. It's going to be very tough for Dallas to get out of there with a win on Monday night.
Yeah, I think it's Pollard and Elliott. They'll win the game. And if everybody starts to sniff the line of scrimmage to stop those 2 guys, then you might get a one-on-one with CeeDee Lamb.
All right, Sal, as usual, that just flew by. And I appreciate all the preparation you did and the notes you sent me. It was great. And I will look forward to seeing you this weekend in Minnesota. And everybody watch the matchup show, please, on ESPN. And Sal,
I got a little note about matchup, Pat. Your promotion has helped. Yeah. We've had our highest audience since 2019.
Excellent. Well done. You're being too modest, Sal. It's because of Sal Paolantonio. Everybody.
No. I think it's because of Greg Cosell's new outfits, new jackets and ties.
Well, maybe because you and I raised the bar on this show. Maybe the word's getting out.
I have a feeling it's because of Darius Butler joined the show and promoted us on his wide array of social media platforms. I'm going to say it's Darius all the way.
Okay. All right, Sal. Thanks again for joining us. And next week, a big week. Look forward to talking to you then. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the great Sal Paolantonio joining us. Next up is Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News. We're going to talk about those two playoff games, a little more detail about the two games involving the NFC East teams, the Giants going to Minnesota and the Cowboys going to Tampa Bay. We'll do that next on This Week in Pro Football.
I grew up in a home, and I wanted my kids to have that. The process of buying a home seemed so daunting, but Christine and M&T believed in me. Everyone took an interest and helped me through the process. You don't get this kind of service everywhere. I closed on the house and I didn't tell the kids. They were like, oh, you got the key? You closed on the home? They were so happy. M&T Bank made this dream come true for me and my girls.
UGI Energy Services knows how dedicated you are to your teams, and that's how they feel about their customers. UGI Energy Services, a natural gas and electric provider servicing Philadelphia and the surrounding areas for decades. They're your local partner for energy planning and budgeting with sound purchasing advice and direct pricing. UGI Energy Services values customers and believes in building honest relationships. Let them help you save money on your energy bill and make enjoying the game that much sweeter. Get started with a free quote today at UGIES.com.
At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at WhistlerPearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@WhisPearl.com. WhistlerPearlstein.com or mod@WhisPearl.com.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
It was late at night. I was browsing KennedyAuto.com when there was a knock at my door.
Hey, baby, what you doing?
Buying a car from John Kennedy Ford.
Online?
I let her in on the secret. KennedyAuto.com makes car buying easy. That got her attention.
Can I go for a ride?
Let me get my coat. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
Welcome back, everyone, to This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you here on JAKIB Sports, getting ready for Super Wildcard Weekend. And don't go around saying just Wildcard Weekend. You got to say Super, because that's the way the National Football League likes it. Here's a super guy here, the host. He's the host of the Talking Ball podcast and contributor for the New York Daily News, follows the New York Giants beat, and that would be Pat Leonard. Pat, how you doing, pal?
Pat, doing great. Just got back from Lincoln Financial Field in Week 18 and now on to Minnesota for a playoff game. Couldn't be better.
Yeah, just a word about that, Pat. Jeff McClain of the Inquirer reporting that Jalen Hurts, in an interview today, asked about his shoulder, said, quote, "It's a good thing there's a bye week," unquote. That's a sobering notion for Eagle fans. Hurts says he's got, 10 days to get himself ready to go. They need 100% Jalen Hurts, the Eagles do, whoever comes to Philadelphia next week, right?
Wow, yeah, absolutely. And the silver lining or the optimistic view from Philly and a point of view there is they got the bye, right? It's we know it's important. We know home field's important, but especially with Lane Johnson and now Jalen Hurts talking like that, I think you saw the Giants defense held them to 5 field goals and a touchdown, right? And Hurts clearly wasn't right in that game. So you're right. It's mighty important for them.
All right, Pat Leonard, we're going to talk a little bit about these 2 playoff games that feature NFC East teams. We'll start with the Giants traveling to Minnesota for a rematch of a game that was only a few weeks ago, a very close game that the Giants could have won. But the Vikings, as I mentioned to Sal Paolantonio, their penchant for pulling out close games this season was extraordinary. They won 11 of them. But let's start with Danny Dimes. And, of course, the nickname Danny Dimes could become Danny Dollars, I think, depending upon how this game goes. How big a game is this for Daniel Jones?
Yeah, Pat, I agree with you. I think it's huge. He already has gotten the conversation started on a possible multi-year extension based on his play. But still, the Giants have that transition tag or franchise tag in their pocket. They could still hedge. You know, he only has 15 touchdown passes, though he does have the 7 rushing TDs. So how big is it for him? I think it's huge because he's going up against the league's 2nd worst pass defense. Right. And the last time they played, as you mentioned, not only did the Giants come closer to winning, but for the first time really all season, they put the game on Jones's back and he was slinging it around the yard.
Yeah.
Now he did throw an interception, but I thought he took command in that game. He looked great. And if they win a playoff game on the road with him throwing for 300 plus, Pat, that's not just big for the Giants and going on their run here. That's huge for Daniel Jones in kind of stamping himself as the franchise QB.
And I think too, Pat, you almost feel bad for him. Gary Myers, who I know you know well and is a frequent guest on this show, he said it right too. Look at this game Sunday, right? Kirk Cousins can look in the huddle and he sees Justin Jefferson, he sees T.J. Hawkinson, right? And a bevy. They had their 3rd wideout is probably better than any Giants wideout right now. So, I mean, the Giants, if they could have armed Jones with a half-ass receiving core, I think he'd be a lot more than 15 TDs.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting that they picked up Isaiah Hodgins from Buffalo, claimed him off waivers midseason. Suddenly you see a guy who looks like he's open a lot. He's got 4 touchdowns in his last 5 games. And Richie James has gotten going too. But to your point, you know, if you get a premier number 1 receiver in pair with Daniel Jones, I think a lot of people in New York for years since Daniel got here were wondering and saying, man, if only prime Odell and Daniel Jones had overlapped. And so I think that's what everybody's waiting for is maybe in the draft next year coming down the pike, maybe they can get that number 1 on top of a receiving core that's evolved here.
I'll tell you, Pat, it's going to cost them some money. Sal and I were talking about 68 starting quarterbacks this year in the National Football League. 7 of the 14 teams that made the playoffs will start a quarterback this week who has never played a postseason game. So the odds, everything's stacking up in Daniel Jones' favor if he hits that free agent market. A word about their soon-to-be free agent running back who lines up behind Daniel Jones. What are your thoughts on what are the Giants going to do after really he's a candidate for comeback player of the year, talking about Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, that's a great question, Pat, because even though they negotiated with him at the bye week and not Jones, I'm actually more confident in what they're going to do with bringing Jones back than Barkley. The reason I say that is that I could be wrong about this, but I do think they use the tag on Jones, the more valuable position, protect the asset. I think Barkley is back if he agrees to a team-friendly deal. Like right now, the top of the running back market is $15-16 million a year. I don't think that a running back is worth that amount of money. And I don't think I know Joe Shane is not Dave Gettleman. And so I can't imagine the Giants giving Barkley that kind of money at that position, though he certainly has been a huge part of what they've done this year.
I know. And this, I was talking about with Sal, the NFL set a record this year for average rush yards per carry at 4.6. But still, I think, Pat, there's a bias. There's a belief in this league that running backs are much easier to come by than top line wide receivers and quarterbacks. And I think it's going to be tough for Saquon to go out there and get a Saquon-friendly deal in the market, right?
I think so too. Yeah, I think I don't know if he'll swallow some pride in his ego and stick with New York and continue to be a face of the franchise here. There would certainly be some value to that.
Yeah.
So if they could find a middle ground at a couple, years and what 10, 11 million, even that for me, I'm not doing that, but I could see the Giants entertaining something closer to that.
Okay, so you give the Giants a good puncher's chance to win this game, to go back there and do this. What do you think is the actual key to the game? If you had to line up Viking offense, Viking defense, Giant offense, Giant defense, which unit is going to have the most to say about who wins this game?
I think the Giants offensive line, and that's been every year that we're always talking about that. When they played last time in Minnesota, the first half was scary. Daniil Hunter and Zadarius Smith were getting after Daniel Jones. Evan Neal, the rookie right tackle, really struggled, though Neal and the line kind of steadied a little bit in the second. And that's when Jones really kind of took the Viking secondary apart.
Right.
Neal has an ankle injury that cropped up on the injury report later this week. I don't know if that's going to mean he can't go or how hobbled he will be. I do wonder if Dable and the Giants maybe have a hook for the young right tackle in Tyree Phillips, their backup tackle, if things don't start well in Minnesota, because I really do think if they don't get to Jones, I think Daniel and the Giants offense will be able to control the ball and move the ball.
All right, Pat, fair enough. Let's now go to the Monday night game. The Cowboys traveling. Let me say this. The Cowboys coming off a terrible 26-6 loss to the Commanders versus an 8-9 division winner, the Tampa Bay Bucks. Are either of these teams, in your opinion, built to go deep in the playoffs?
I think Dallas has the talent to do it, but I don't have the confidence in their coaching. Tampa is not built for a deep run, but I do think they are built to beat the Dallas Cowboys. Okay. And I heard Sal kind of talking about if Dallas runs the ball and controls the clock, it'll happen. If they put it in Dak's hands and they throw it too much, turnovers, Bucks win. I do think the Bucks win this game, but Dallas for years now, Pat, they've been one of the more talented rosters in the NFL. Yeah. And McCarthy will be in trouble if they lose this game, because you have to at some point get a talented roster like this deep into the playoffs. I don't think Dallas is going to make a deep run. I think they're better equipped to do so than the Bucks if they're coached well.
All right, fair enough. But then that's a big prepositional phrase you just dropped there. If they're coached well, I mean, it's something. It's somebody with a record as sterling as Mike McCarthy's record is, and yet, as you pointed out, and you're not wrong, even though Jerry Jones denied it this week on his radio show. No, he's not in any trouble. If they go out Monday night and they go out in bad fashion Monday night, I think that's going to be a tough one for Mike McCarthy. I mean, you're right. The Cowboys have too much talent. And we say this, don't we say this, Pat, almost every year?
We say it every year, Pat. And this is exactly the game. You look at this spread with them favored by 2.5, whatever it is. This looks exactly like the kind of game that we all expect Dallas to lose. Favored. That's people right. know they're the more talented team. And that says everything about Jones and the Cowboys, right?
Yeah, it does. Now, I mean, last week they really didn't have much to play for. They kicked off at the same time as the Eagles, and I'm sure they were watching the game. They had a minimal chance of moving up to grab that division title. But God almighty, they look terrible. I mean, do you think the Eagles at least have a bye week now to get some mojo back? Dallas coming off that kind of game, do you think that might have any carryover effect, or is it a whole new season come Monday night?
I think it could have carryover. Maybe it motivates them to turn it on because it was so turned off in that game. But Pat, I think what it is, it's emblematic of even when they are physically superior, they are often not mentally superior. Yeah. Like, why are they not getting up for that game? Everybody knows that if they put even a semblance of their good football on the field, they beat Washington. Right. I do agree that I think that laying that egg is a precursor or a preview of what's to come.
Yep. All right. Pat Leonard, tell us about the Talking Ball podcast and what do you got cooked up this week?
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Talking Ball with Pat Leonard. We do it every week at the Believe Network, and we talk the whole league, Pat, but also with kind of a Giants flavor. And so this week we're doing a heavy, juicy playoff preview, all the games, doing all the picks against the spread, and getting you prepared for my trip out to US Bank Stadium for the Giants' first playoff game since 2016. So come on and join us on that convo.
Yeah, that'd be great. I will definitely listen to that. I look forward to that very much. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you joining me this season. It was great having you on. And it squeezed me into one of those podcasts. I'm sure your listeners will be thrilled to hear what I have to say, Pat, right?
Hey, Pat, we might be looking at Eagles Giants coming down the pike. So
That's
you never
all
know,
it takes.
man.
You're right. All it's going to take, because there's no way the Seattle is going to beat San Francisco. No way.
No.
So that means the Giants at that 6th seed, if they win, they're automatically coming to Philadelphia. And boy, you're right. Well, it's a short trip for you, Pat. Anyway, that's good. Right?
Love it. Not getting on a plane if that happens.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. All right, Pat. Listen, I appreciate it very much. Look forward to talking to you real soon. All right.
You got it. Yeah. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks very much, Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News and the Talking Ball podcast. Please give that a listen. Give this next guy a listen when he joins me after the break. That's the great Sean Green coming at you from Los Angeles. It doesn't look like he's got a Rams shirt on again, but we're going to be talking. I have a lot of things to talk to Sean Green about. I want you to join me with it next on This Week in Pro Football.
UGI Energy Services knows how dedicated you are to your teams, and that's how they feel about their customers. UGI Energy Services, a natural gas and electric provider servicing Philadelphia and the surrounding areas for decades. They're your local partner for energy planning and budgeting with sound purchasing advice and direct pricing. UGI Energy Services values customers and believes in building honest relationships. Let them help you save money on your energy bill and make enjoying the game that much sweeter. Get started with a free quote today at UGIES.com.
For the team at Cordasco Financial Network, a part of Mercer Advisors, financial planning is about more than just managing your money. They guide you in making retirement, tax, insurance, and estate planning decisions by creating a plan based entirely on your individual needs. Plus, Cordasco Financial Network professionals work one-on-one with business owners in creating and managing company 401k plans, IRAs, and defined benefit plans. They can help you maximize plan efficiency, ensure full regulatory compliance, and optimize tax obligations. Call 855-558-3500 or click the link in the description below to learn more. Let their team help you secure your future. 855-558-3500. Cordasco Financial Network is a trade name owned by Mercer Global Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Andrew Garrett Incorporated, which is not affiliated with Cordasco Financial Network or Mercer Advisors. Client experiences vary. Successful outcomes not guaranteed.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
And welcome back. This week in Pro Football, Pat Callahan joining you here on JAKIB Sports. We've rumbled right through the first 50 minutes of this high-quality program. I've held this guy. I do it every week to him, and I apologize. That would be the great Sean Green from the Sports Gambling Podcast, Bet SGPN. Sean, how you doing, pal?
Doing great. Playoffs are here, ready to go.
Yep.
It's awesome. Super Wildcard Weekend. We got 6 games.
All right, Sean, listen. I need clipped answers here. I don't need any of your excess verbosity, okay, because I got 1,000 things to ask you.
Sure.
I got about 11 minutes to do it. First off, let me rattle you off here. These are from Caesar Sportsbook, some odds. I want you to tell me if Sean Green is parting with $100 of his hard-earned money. Philadelphia plus 550. Boy, that sounds like a great number to me, Sean.
Yeah, I'm not parting with 100. I'm parting more than that. At plus 550, that's a really good price.
Yeah.
And here's why, Pat. I'll keep it quick. them to win the NFC is only like plus 160. So if they're that much of a favorite to win the NFC, that to me feels like a good price because I don't think they're going to be that big of a dog in the Super
Bowl. I agree with you. San Francisco plus 450.
Yeah, see, I don't like San Francisco as much as the market does. Again, they're a better price than the Philadelphia Eagles. They have to play an extra game. So even if you take my insane bias out of it, still their path is much harder. And I think this Brock Purdy Cinderella story might run out one of these games.
I hope it does. And I hope it does in Philadelphia. If they come here for the NFC Championship game, I would love it. I can't stand the 49ers. I apologize to my audience in San Francisco, but I can't. I'm sorry. I can't stand them. But there you go. At least they're bringing back the saloon numbers. I just looked at their end zone. That's always a classy. 49ers do have a classy look, I must say. Let me just hit you with two other ones that I was surprised at, Sean. Jacksonville plus 5,000, while Baltimore is plus 3,500. Now, I know Baltimore has a much better defense, but to me, out of those two teams, I think the Jags have a better chance than the Ravens of getting there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, first pick overall, he certainly has had some flaws in his game, but you have him and you have, again, a head coach who was an underdog before and went on a magical Super Bowl run. So, again, they're both long shots, but I'm with you at 50-1. That's a much better price.
Yes. All right. I know you had TCU plus 59 Monday, right? I think you did. I think I saw that.
I was on TCU, but I at least got to turn the game off early. That was a bloodbath.
So the mattress guy, it's the same guy who made all the money on the Astros, right?
Yes. He lost a tremendous amount of money. And if we're talking about big losers in sports gambling, I think you have to talk about the Circa Survivor contest out in Las Vegas. So it's a $6 million prize. It's down to the final week. There's three guys. One guy takes the Jaguars. He wins Saturday. And then one of the other guys, he in his Survivor, one guy in Seattle, so he won. So he got the to split the $6 million. And then the third guy, his pick, essentially for $2 million, was the Indianapolis Colts. So if you remember how that Texans game ended, 4th and 20, they threw it up to lose
$2 million on a last-second touchdown, a 2-point conversion. Oh my God!
And that's off $1,000 entry. So I think he's kicking himself more than Mattress Mac.
Are you sure he's kicking himself? Does anybody know that guy? Is he still around? That guy? I think somebody should check on him.
That's a tough one.
Oh my God, Sean! That's the story of the year. That one there. Now, speaking about fails, let me hit you with this. I wrote down my three answers to these three. You give me yours. The biggest team fail, NFL team fail in 2022 was?
I'm going to go Las Vegas Raiders. Okay. I think they brought in so much talent. You get Devontae Adams, and they just kept losing close games. Colts were close there for me, but I'm going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders and their situation with Derek Carr as well. So
I know, and look at this. He's now made it clear that he's not giving them any extension, anything. He's not agreeing to anything. The Raiders have till February 15th to trade him, or they're gonna have to cut him, and that's an expensive cut by the Raiders there for sure to come away with nothing. So, and then look at the market's going to be for Derek Carr. I mean, I was never a big Derek Carr fan, but this quarterback market, he's going
to have options.
Yeah, he sure is. All right. Yeah, mine was Green Bay. I were you shocked at I just thought Detroit was a better team Sunday night, Sean. And it wasn't a fluke. I thought the Lions were better.
No, I know. I thought this was a spot for the Packers to close it out, but usually Rodgers waits to the playoffs to choke, but he did this. He did it in the last.
You're correct.
I mean, that throw down the sideline, double coverage, there's just some bad throws.
I know. And he makes a habit of doing it in the fourth quarter of must-win games, playoff games. You think back to last year, lost to San Francisco. He did the same thing.
Yep.
I don't know. First ballot Hall of Famer, but I don't know about Aaron Rodgers.
Well, he doesn't know either, right? It's always, I got to come back. I don't know.
Now, look, his cash payout for 2023 is only $59 million. I mean, I would think that over too if I was a player. I mean, who needs that aggravation? All right, who's your MVP for 2022, Sean?
Yeah, I'm giving it to Jalen Hurts. Again, slight bias here, but I think we saw with and without this Eagles team, 14-1 with Jalen Hurts, 0-2 without Jalen Hurts. So again, all things being equal, we saw with and without him. I don't mind them giving it to Patrick Mahomes, but Hurts has my bet.
That's fair. I'd go with that, except that Mahomes is going to win it. He's just too big.
Yeah.
He's such a camera favorite that there's no way he's not getting. And the coach of the year, now this one is much more scrambled. You could name a half dozen guys that I think have a legitimate shot at that award. Who's your guy?
Yeah, no, to your point, this is kind of the craziest awards race I've seen in a long time. I'm actually going to go with former Eagles head coach Doug Peterson. I think the fact that they were such a disaster last year with Urban Meyer, not only to kind of change the team around on the field, but also kind of change the culture. And, they got off to a 2-1 start. They lost a bunch of games in the row there. And then to kind of close it out strong, to come back and win the division, get them into the playoffs, I think is a huge accomplishment. So all things being equal, I'm taking Doug P.
All right. My vote was for Nick Sirianni. I think it's a shame sometimes. Your guy goes 14-3 and he kind of doesn't get he doesn't get anywhere near the stature that usually coaches who go 14-3 get. And he's only in his second year. And let's face it, he's done one hell of a job in Philadelphia. Nobody was talking the Eagles at 14-3. At the start of this season. So I
know. I had them 12-5 and people said, "Oh, you're such a biased homer." I'm like, I think they're going to be better. And they exceeded my expectations.
I think a couple teams. Did you mention Doug Peterson? I think certainly they did. Brian Dable in New York, and I'll tell you,
you could really make a decent case for a bunch of guys here.
And the job Pete Carroll did, and that is not a good team. I'm sorry, man. That is not a good team. And we're going to see that.
Getting the Seahawks into the playoffs, I think, is quite the accomplishment.
I see, man. And now we can segue from that into some picks here. Talking with Sean Green here, presented by the good folks at UGI. Please check him out on the Sports Betting Podcast. San Francisco, only a 10-point number. Boy, I see you have that down on your website. I don't see how Seattle stays within that number. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, the case for San Francisco is pretty easy. They're just a much more talented team. And to me, Geno Smith is rattled, right? Remember the early Geno Smith MVP talk? That's how long these NFL seasons are. There was a point where he was in the mix.
I know.
Oh, he's going to be a Pro Bowler, all pro.
Yep.
He looks really rattled. I mean, he did everything he could to give your Rams that game there.
Yeah.
But
referees did too. Referees made up for whatever he was doing. The refs made up for it.
Yeah, they really caught a ton of breaks in that game. Very fortunate to get the win there. And this 49ers defense is just going to destroy him. I think the only reason you might talk yourself into Seattle is that it is tough to cover 3 times against a division opponent. It's one thing to beat them 3 times, but to cover all 3 times, I think is a tough thing to do. And Brock Purdy, eventually, I think
you're going to see Brock Purdy, I think.
Eventually, but I don't know if this is the game.
Yeah. And certainly, let me segue now to somewhere else here. That as far as I know your lock, the LA Chargers, who are now getting, they're a 2.5-point favorite.
Yep.
Chargers are a 2.5-point favorite over the Jags. Is that right?
Yeah. Anything under 3, I like the Chargers. To me, I just didn't see enough out of the Jags in that Titans game. They don't have their left tackle Cam Robinson, Joey Bosa, who got a little banged up in the last regular season game. He looks to be good to go. I think he's going to be able to create some pressure on that Jags offensive side, and the Chargers are just much better on the road than at home.
Yeah. Well, with that raucous crowd they got at home.
SoFi.
That's right. Boy, Joey Bosa cannot stay healthy. God almighty, that guy, he's such a force, but he just can't stay healthy. But that's going to be, I think, Sean, that could be the best game of the weekend, actually. I think that game.
Certainly the spread reflects it, and it should be pretty good, should be pretty close. But again, I've just been kind of a little out on Trevor Lawrence here those last couple games. I mean, he missed a bunch of throws in that Titans game. And I think this Chargers team, I think you can move the ball on the Jags. The things that scare me, obviously, is the Chargers rush defense, which can be pretty porous at times. But I think getting Bosa back should be huge for them. So,
and one last game I want you to look at for me, Sean, the Monday night game, the Cowboys off a 12-5 season, but off an awful loss at Washington, traveled to 8-9 Tampa Bay, the NFC South winner. Just give me your take on this one and which of these 2 disappointing teams is going to walk away with a win.
Love the Tampa Bay Bucks here as a home dog on Monday night. You know, Rain Dakota Prescott, he's been throwing a ton of interceptions. He led the league in interceptions in spite of missing 5 games. He's thrown one in every one of his last 7 games for 11 total. And again, you talk about offensive line and offensive line health. As I talked about in the previous game, Tampa Bay is getting their center Ryan Jensen back, which is really huge.
That is huge. Yeah.
Tom Brady, he's getting up there in age. He doesn't like to get hit, and that was a big part early on in the season, even the middle of the season. As they've gotten healthier as an offensive line, their offense has gotten way better.
Yeah. Well, all right. We'll see. I mean, at the Cowboys, I was talking with Pat Leonard of the New York Daily News in the previous segment and about how disappointing the Cowboys have been in the postseason.
Yeah.
And the pressure that has got to be built up in that organization to produce a deep playoff run. And if Sean Green's right, that's going to be about 3 hours long.
Yeah, it's not going to be too deep. I like the Bucks to win outright, so I think this is a good spot for them.
All right, everybody, check out, please, the Bet SGPN, the Sports Gambling Podcast. Sean, what else are you working on amongst the 80 things? God knows what you're into. The paddle, what is it? Paddle ball or what? What are you
pickleball? Yeah, pickleball. Now? As soon as we can get someone to set some pickleball lines, we'll be covering it, Pat.
All right, well, good for you, pal. Appreciate it very much, Sean. I got another week here. I want to talk to you next week. We'll do a lot of talk. Whoever is going to Philadelphia to make for some interesting conversation. Oh, yeah. All right, thanks very much.
See you next week, Pat.
All right, great Sean Green from the Sports Gambling Podcast joining me. Up next, the great Gary Myers, whose book I'm reading right now, Coaching Confidential. We're going to talk coaches with Gary. We're going to talk what teams have to face up that they need to rebuild. And, of course, we'll sweep through these 6 Super Wildcard games. That's all next on This Week in Pro Football.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go, Eagles.
UGI
First Bank is a true community bank with offices located throughout eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Being a First Bank customer comes with access to personal bankers, ones who know you and your business almost as well as you do. Joe Calabro is a regional president of First Bank and has been a leader and a lender in the southeastern Pennsylvania market for over 30 years. Call their Westchester office, 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC.
UGI Energy Services knows how dedicated you are to your teams, and that's how they feel about their customers. UGI Energy Services, a natural gas and electric provider servicing Philadelphia and the surrounding areas for decades. They're your local partner for energy planning and budgeting with sound purchasing advice and direct pricing. UGI Energy Services values customers and believes in building honest relationships. Let them help you save money on your energy bill and make enjoying the game that much sweeter. Get started with a free quote today at ugies.com. Where do you tailgate when your team's away? Join Judd's and Jackson's at Spring Mill for their first ever Birds Tailgate Party on Sunday, September 25th, starting at noon under the tent. Enjoy a full tailgate buffet from only $26.95 per person, along with specials at the bar. Celebrate with friends cheering on our hometown team. Judd's and Jackson's at Spring Mill Athletic Club. Visit juddsdining.com for more details.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spent. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
right. Thanks for hanging with me here this week in pro football as we wrap it up as always. This gentleman, the great Gary Myers, a longtime correspondent for the New York Daily News and the Dallas Morning News, and one of the first guys to appear with Nick Buoniconti and Len Dawson on Inside the NFL, and a prolific author. Gary, I'm reading your book right now, Coaching Confidential. How you doing?
Pat, I mean, that book came out in like 2012. Where you been?
Look, Gary, there's a lot of Gary Myers books now. I can't read them all. But just give me, this isn't fair. I know there's no prep here, but did you ever have a singular run-in with Bill Parcells, like where you asked him a question that annoyed him or anything in which you actually got the full Parcells fury trained on you?
Well, of course. If anybody's been around Parcells at one point or another, incurred his wrath. In 1998, when the Jets had put an offer sheet out on Curtis Martin, this was Parcells' second year with the Jets.
Right.
And, obviously he had drafted Curtis in New England and he loved him. And I think it was a 6-year, $36 million offer sheet. And I wrote a column. This is a colossal mistake. Curtis had injuries. I think he had an abdominal injury at the end of his third year in New England. It was too much money. The Jets already had Adrian Morrell, who was a productive running back. I mean, he wasn't as good as Curtis Martin. And they were going to have to give up first and third round picks. And for a team with so many problems, a running back wasn't the way to go. So I'm at the league meeting. I can't remember if it was in Orlando or whatever.
Right.
And I get home from the last day of the meetings, and Bill was not at the meetings, and there's 3 messages on my answering machine.
No.
From his secretary.
Right.
Gary, Bill needs to talk to you. An hour later. Gary, where are you? Bill needs to talk to you. This was the day before cell phones,
Yeah.
Third one, he really needs to talk to you. Are you avoiding him?
Oh, boy.
So as soon as I heard it, I called him right back. And he goes, Myers, why don't you like me?
Oh, my God.
And I go, Bill, what are you talking about? I really like you. I love writing about you.
Right.
He goes, every move I'm making here, you're criticizing. I said, well, it's my job, to say what I think and how I feel. And it's never personal.
Right.
It never was any personal with anybody.
Right.
And he was really mad at me. And then like a month or so later, he signed Vinny Testaverde. And I'm going, what the hell is this guy doing? I'm still really friendly with Bill, and he reminds me constantly.
That's
hey,
funny.
Remember when you thought Curtis Martin was a bad guy?
Oh, God. I'm sure he does. Yeah. He reminds you of all those. I don't know. He probably doesn't remind you about any of the busts, but he reminds you of them, I bet.
Yeah. I said, how about not telling Archie Manning that you were going to draft Peyton Manning? That was a pretty big mistake.
Very good. I want to start with this, Gary. We're talking about, obviously, Super Wildcard Weekend, and I'm intrigued by that Monday night game. Ed Warder, who I know is your pen pal on Twitter, he just came out and said he mentions how the Cowboys have an 11-1 record on turf, and they're 1-4 on grass. Would you agree with what he's intimating, that the Cowboys are built for speed and that this could be problematic for them on Monday night?
Yeah, I mean, I think Zeke has lost something, and he's faster on turf. CeeDee Lamb is faster on turf. I mean, all players are faster on turf, but I don't know if that's the deciding factor here. The fact that the Cowboys haven't won a road playoff game since they beat the 49ers in the 1992 NFC Championship game is mind-boggling. Just coincidentally, Pat, I do a TV show in here in New York on Thursday mornings. And when I came out of the studio, back to like the green room, Emmitt Smith was there. And I go, what are you doing here? Mm-hmm. He was just on a promotional tour for some company he was representing.
Right.
But we started talking about Monday night, and I said, Emmitt, I just have this feeling that Tampa Bay is going to beat the Cowboys. I mean, I just kind of feel it.
Right.
And he says, well, they're on the road, and the last playoff game they won, on the road. And I started thinking, he goes, it was that championship game in San Francisco.
I know. I know. And you've covered the Cowboys. How much pressure is there inside those offices in Dallas? I mean, they've got to make what I call a substantive playoff run. To my mind, Gary, that would be the NFC title game in order for the Cowboys to be to regain some credibility as a postseason team.
Pat, about 3 weeks ago, I tweeted, if Mike McCarthy can't at least get to the NFC Championship game, I think that Sean Payton will be coaching the Cowboys next year. And I got such pushback.
Yeah, he did. I saw it. And from Ed. Ed was one of the artists. Yeah.
When Ed said to me, trust me, the Cowboys never pay at the top of the market for coaches. Now, Ed is one of my really good friends in the business, but I said, I kind of remember Parcells getting $17 million over 4 years.
Yeah.
All those years ago when and that was the top of the market.
Right.
Now, Jerry Jones came out on Tuesday and said, no matter what happens Monday night, Mike McCarthy is the coach next year. I'm sorry. I know Jerry since the day he bought the team. What he says on Tuesday may not be true on Thursday or in this case Monday night.
That's fair. That's more than fair. We're going around the NFL here with Gary Myers, here presented by M&T Bank. Gary.
Matt, I just want to add one thing to this.
Yeah.
So last year they lose at home to San Francisco in the wild card round.
Right.
Obviously they had a better record and they were division champs. Now if they lose on Monday night to a team that finished under 500 that has struggled all season.
Right.
I don't care that they've won 12 games back to back, which is overstated a little bit because it's now a 17-game season.
Right.
So, okay, maybe they won 11 games, which is still pretty good.
Yeah.
But the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl. It's more than a quarter of a century, or more than a quarter of a century here. Since 1995, they haven't been back to a championship game since 1995. Winning the 12 games, I mean, the Cowboys stay relevant, and that allows Jerry to continue to make money. But I don't know. They lose this game Monday night. I think Mike McCarthy has a good chance of paying for it with his job.
Good. I think there's a good chance you're going to be right about that. Let me just dispense with these other three, Gary, and you tell me if any of these three teams have a puncher's chance at all. Now, Sal surprised me on one of them. Tell me what you think. First off, Buffalo, Miami. Skylar Thompson, give me a break. Does Miami have any shot to in this game?
Oh, none. Absolutely none. And I'm not sure what chance they would have had. I don't know if the weather's going to be in Buffalo on Sunday, but, traditionally, the Dolphins have not done well in cold weather playoff games. And the fact, I think this one could be over at halftime.
Yeah, I do too. I definitely
think it could be one of those 45-6 games.
I do too. And here's another one. Seattle traveling to San Francisco. I think the 49ers are obviously they're on a 10-game winning streak, and Seattle, I think, has run out of gas, Gary. And the experiment there with Geno Smith, the Geno Smith MVP experience is over. How badly is Seattle going to lose Saturday to San Francisco?
Yeah, I think San Francisco right now is the best team in the league, which is amazing considering who the quarterback is.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to me that 3 out of these 6 games are just division games.
Yeah.
Where the higher seed now has got to beat the lower seed from their own division, and I don't give Seattle any chance.
I agree with you.
Cover in this game.
And here's the game that surprised me. Talking about another division game, Sal Paolantonio thinks that Baltimore has a shot here because of how good and aggressive their defense is. I don't think they have any shot against Cincinnati Sunday night. What do you think?
Well, I think they played them tough for a while last weekend, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And it looks like Tyler Huntley's going to be able to start.
Yeah.
And what was it? Anthony Brown.
Anthony Brown is right. Yeah.
Huntley threw today in practice or on Thursday in practice. And so it looks like there's a good chance he's going to play. Lamar has no chance of playing. I think Cincinnati, it goes without saying they're red hot. They're going to be a tough out, but it's not good. There's no chance that it comes on Sunday. I think Baltimore is one and done, and they're always so competitive, the Ravens, and then come January, they just seem to disappear pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if the Ravens just beat themselves up over the course of now a 17-game season.
Yeah.
They're not supremely talented, especially the skill positions on offense, and I think they just wear out, much like Tennessee does. I've always said that about the Titans the same way. All right, a word about let me segue back here to coaching, Gary. You're my go-to guy for coaching changes, things like that. Do you think we're done here? Do you see anybody else maybe getting that phone call that's an existing NFL coach besides Mike McCarthy?
Well, I think that, first of all, I think any team that's not in the playoffs that hasn't fired its coach yet is not likely to fire their coach. It would have happened already. But there's, we could be surprised. The guy that I think is still in a tenuous position is Brandon Staley with the Chargers. He is the most analytics-driven coach in the NFL.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for him to go for it on 4th and 2 for his own 25 in the first half.
Right.
Against Jacksonville and miss it. And
the
Jaguars turned into a touchdown.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And you mentioned Sean Payton, Gary, as someone who might be going to Dallas. Well, certainly that's
Chargers definitely.
Yes, that is an attractive job with a quarterback like they've got, right?
Well, and Sean has been living in Los Angeles as he's working for Fox.
Yeah.
He's going to want to go to a team that either has a quarterback or has a clear path to get a quarterback in the draft. So far, Arizona, Denver, and Houston have requested and received permission to speak to him. That can begin. I think those interviews can begin next Tuesday. How attractive does Houston become because they have the second pick?
Yeah,
and they can get Bryce Young.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that Sean's going to want to go to a place where he can bring in his own guy to run the front office. And with Nick Caserio in Houston, that's just not going to happen unless, Cal McNair is ready to get rid of Caserio. Right. I think when all's said and done, I don't think any of the openings right now are attractive to Sean. I'm not sure he wants to go coach Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson.
I am so shocked, Gary, when you actually hear a news report say that the Cardinals are going to allow Kyler Murray to have input into the coaching, their coaching process. You just shake your head like, is this the NBA now? How could you already made an enormous mistake by giving him that contract. Now you're going to double down on it, let him name
He's going to be out most of next season. He tore his ACL pretty, late in the year, like the three-quarter mark.
You're right.
So I think, me saying Dallas, you saying the Chargers, those are the two teams that I think are right at the top of Sean's list. People will say, well, is he going to go work for Jerry? He had a really good relationship with Jerry Jones when he was an assistant for Parcells for those 3 years. I think they've remained good friends.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think Sean's family stayed behind in Dallas when he went to New Orleans, but he's since been divorced. I think his kids are older now. I'm not even sure they're living in Dallas. So that probably is not the attraction it once was. But, I'm not convinced, that Dak Prescott is good enough to win a Super Bowl or at this point even win more than one playoff game. But I'd rather go work with Dak Prescott than Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson.
Fair enough. All right, Gary, we got a couple minutes left. I just wanted to get your take on this. To me, the biggest fail, certainly of Week 17, was the Packers losing at home Sunday night to a team which had been eliminated 3 hours prior. But I thought Detroit was the better team Sunday night. It was no fluke. I thought Detroit was a better team.
Yeah.
Give me your take on Green Bay. Is it time for the Packers to look themselves hard in the mirror and say, you know what, we got to start this thing over?
Yeah, I would say that you're accurate with that. The real issue, obviously, when you say that is what are they going to do about Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
I mean, the last pass he threw of the game, which turned out to be his last pass of the season, was like a punt down the right sideline. Yeah. I mean, I was blown away in that situation that he threw a ball like that. That was, I mean, boy, that was a rookie throw or a veteran journeyman who hasn't played in 6 months or so, in 3 months. I was shocked, and then they couldn't get the ball back. He's got so much money coming to him next year. I think I read
$59 million.
Yeah, I was going to say I heard $58.5 million.
Let's not blow it out of proportion or anything.
Yeah, but Pat, I mean, how does that translate? And I don't know the answer to this. I haven't done the research yet. How does that translate if they try to trade him?
Yeah,
it's guaranteed money. Yeah. I think regardless of, I don't think there's like an option date on that. I'm pretty sure that's just written into his contract.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very hard for Aaron to walk away from that. I don't care how much money you have.
I mean, I agree. That is a tough one to walk away from.
You're telling me $20 million, which is still obviously life-changing money for the average person, but
right.
he's made so much
Yeah.
that you can say, what's another $20 million? But $58 million.
I agree. And how many NFL teams, how many other teams are even prepared to absorb that? It could only be a team, Gary, that is on the cusp, that is built and ready to go, like the Rams were a year ago, and all they needed was that guy to just get them there, and they did it. And I think, but how many of those teams are there?
Yeah, and the other thing to consider about Aaron, how good is Aaron Rodgers right now?
Yeah.
I know they won a bunch of games toward the end of the season, but they were running the ball.
Yeah.
They got the running game going, which they couldn't really do against Detroit, so they were relying on Aaron to throw the ball more.
Yeah, you mentioned that pass he threw in that game. You could substitute a half dozen such passes.
Right.
He did the same thing against San Francisco last year. He just in the fourth quarter, I don't know if his mind starts to wander or what it is, but I think you're right. I think he's clearly on the downside, and I think the Packers as an organization are going to they got to take a hard look at that kid they drafted and see if he's going to be their guy.
Yeah, I really got to look up and see Aaron's contract on whether there's any outs for the Packers, if it kind of vests at a certain date into the league year, or whether that's just flat out guaranteed. But that's just going to make trading him that much more difficult, because any team he goes to is not going to want to take on that money.
I agree.
So we'll see. But I unlike with Brady, who at that age was still really, really good, and Brady still is really good in spurts more than consistently now. I thought I saw a tremendous. Aaron was coming off back-to-back MVP seasons.
Yeah, I know.
And I saw
a tremendous drop. Right.
Yeah, a huge deterioration of his skills this year.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's it for a lot of these older quarterbacks. I think it was a comeuppance year. All right, Gary, as usual, time flies by talking to you. I really appreciate you taking all this time. I look forward to talking to you next week. We got I think divisional weekend is going to be much better. Look forward to talking to you then. All right.
Take care, Pat. Good night.
All right. Thanks very much to Gary Myers for joining me there. All right. We're done here on the Super Wildcard edition of This Week in Pro Football. Thanks very much to Xander Krause for helping and producing this thing. And thanks to everybody, Sal Pao, Pat Leonard, Gary Myers, Sean Green for joining me. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Look forward to seeing you all next week on This Week in Pro Football.